All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. This is a bonus webinar that that we ran because of popular demand. It's specifically about SEO, and more than that, we're going to get into it a little bit more. Sounds like it's streaming. Okay, cool.
We're streaming.
Glenn,
We're
beautiful.
good.
All right, so the only place to see this right now is on weballey.net. We've got it embedded there. There were a few reasons for doing that. I'll be fully transparent. We wanted to make sure that people who are interested in understanding what we're doing currently actually get full access to the rest of the stuff that it takes to really make things work. Um, Learning more about SEO is seldom the only answer you need, right? It's rarely the thing that's really holding you back, but you've got to think about search engine optimization differently, and you got to think about your business and what you actually do on a day-to-day basis differently to really make a difference in how you live, what your life looks like, the impact you have, how many customers you can impact, all that kind of thing. And so we wanted to make sure that people who are watching this are also aware of some of the other things that myself and Glenn and our third partner who's not live today, Mike, have experienced, to make sure you kind of get the full effect. Because oftentimes you've got to really kind of put a few different things together to actually have a business that is capable of actually delivering results that you actually like and you don't mind working in, and that has the capability of growing with new relationships you build and the decisions that you can help people make that you come in contact with and that you kind of develop a relationship with. So this is kind of a webinar that I didn't expect to produce here. It was kind of always intentioned to be something that would live elsewhere, but just due to the fact that this is kind of the world I've been living in now for, I don't know, 7 years, give or take. I've been kind of teaching and training in the SEO world. I say the SEO world. I'm going to flesh that out, right? Um, as we kind of continue on with what we're doing here, but like very few people are really, they give two shits about SEO, right? And pardon my language. I might drop a couple cuss words. I'll try not to. I've got kids inside, and I don't want them to say those words, so I'll try not to myself. But like, search engine optimization is not something that's at the forefront of many people's minds, unless you're in this like kind of world where you think that understanding this technology and the fact that search engines have marketed themselves well enough where the majority of people who go online look for answers on a search engine, whether it be Google or Bing or Yahoo or DuckDuckGo or whatever it might be. You've got to kind of understand that SEO might be on the mind of yourself, as well as the potential client you might be working with, but at the same time, really what lies behind that is much bigger and much more important. And so what we're going to dig into tonight is some, well, training that has been kind of the distillation of what I've been doing online now for 7 years. I've worked with thousands of people and helped them understand not just search engine optimization, but how to implement search engine optimization, SEO, in their own business, to have an impact on their customers, how to position themselves uh, from a business perspective to help people that they interact with view the people that I've worked with in a favorable light. But even more than that, what it's about is understanding that you've got to be able to deploy and implement SEO in a way that has an impact. And there, there's a strong likelihood that most people on here already know enough about SEO in their mind to be able to make a killing. But the fact that you're on this webinar sort of means that all that hasn't come together yet. And so we're going to not only talk about some kind of foundational SEO. I say theory just because I don't know a better word to use, but this is really about how search engines work. But even more than that, what it's about is making sure that you're taking what's in your what you already know and getting it in place on websites and URLs on the internet so that you and your clients and your projects benefit from that. So I titled this a couple different ways in a couple different places. Advanced SEO, beginner friendly, meta SEO, and some different things like that. And I was trying to have some fun with it, but I was also trying to be as clear as possible about the things that I have seen, not only in myself, and I'm going to try as much as possible to speak from personal experience here. But I've also seen this in dozens and hundreds, if not thousands of people who know what they need to do, but they get in their own way. And so what I'm going to try to do today is to help things, help you find the way all the way down to its foundation as far as what search engines are doing so that you can engineer circumstances where you and your clients and your projects benefit from it. But then I'm also going to kind of parallel build and talk about what I think is, I won't say most important, but it's at least equally important as far as getting results in your own life, in the people you work with's life, to really change things. And that's really what it boils down to, right? We weren't born with some inherent desire to understand search engines and to understand technology and to figure out HTML and all these different things. Those came from someone showing us that if we do that, if we put those factors in place, our life can be different. And so that's really kind of the crux and the core of kind of what I want to hit on and talk about tonight. And so I'm here tonight with one of my business partners, Glenn Ingram. Thank you for being on. I'm not even going to introduce yourself, talk about kind of your experience a little bit, because I know that we've had a ton of signups that came from us talking about just SEO specifically. But Glenn and I have been running a web series now for almost 3 weeks, talking about some of the other elements that can keep you from actually getting the, rubber hitting the road, so to speak, on getting results with what you already know. But some of the limiting factors that can completely block you from actually doing this stuff, right? And so I don't want to call this mindset. Like there's going to be like facts and tactics and things you can actually do. But in my experience, again, which is not insignificant, there are a lot of people who get in their own way and who themselves are the bottleneck. You're always the bottleneck in one way or another, right? What we're trying to do is to help people see that changing some of your understanding about some of these systems in your own business are things you can absolutely control and that will absolutely impact the ability you have to change the course of your business and the people who work with you, whether they're partners or outsourcers or employees or whatever it might be, in actually like really increasing the impact that you have on things. So Glenn?
Hi, Fletch. Thanks. Yeah, my name is Glenn Ingram. I've been working in marketing and advertising for the better part of 2 decades. I know I don't
Better
look that old,
fart?
but I know it doesn't. I don't look that old, but yes. um, so I started working for one of those large phone books years ago, and then the last probably half of my career there, I was on the side that specialized and kind of they pivoted to websites, PPC, display, SEO, and stuff like that. And so it was interesting, kind of seeing bottlenecks, obstacles that larger companies encounter when it comes to offering these services. And when it was apparent that my vision was different than their vision, about a decade ago, I started my own company doing this stuff. So I've gone from working for a large company and being part of a large team and kind of being a leader on that team to being a leader of a small team and learning the different pros and cons, goods and bad things that come along with both of those. And I will tell you 100%, I would never want to go back to that large team, because what I try and share with business owners is when you work for a large company like that, you really don't get educated, spend the time to be educated and doing this stuff like what we do, because a large company knows if they pay for your education, you're going to leave and go do it on your own. So it's just kind of been interesting, I guess, a path going down as far as running an agency, developing an agency, growing an agency, and the different obstacles that I've had to overcome. And as some of you have been on some of these webinars before, you'll know this reference. Sometimes the biggest obstacle we have to overcome is the 6 inches between our ears. And everybody's like that. We all have innate fear, innate doubts in ourselves. And like you mentioned before, some people getting in their own way. It's kind of difficult sometimes for us to get out of our own way to get to the levels that we're striving towards, because we build in limitations. We build in, different obstacles that are going to hold us back or going to make it hard to get over those obstacles. And to the point that you were making a little bit earlier, I mean, it comes down to every part of an agency. I don't care if it's SEO. I don't care if it's prospecting. I don't care if it's sales, if it's other things that you're doing for fulfillment. Confidence comes into play with a lot of people that we talk to around the internet, because they will let insecurities creep into when they're doing prospecting, when they're talking to people, when they're delivering to things. So I think confidence is probably the biggest factor we all have to try and work on just about every day.
Yeah, like what Glenn said there, we're going to circle back on that a lot tonight. Confidence. I'm not reluctant to share this. I was nervous about tonight. It's been over a year since I put out any new training in search engine optimization. Um, I question even to the to today whether or not I'm like not qualified, but like what am I going to add? What can I do to make sure that people who share their time with me get something in return, get some value? And depending on your perspective, that might seem weird. It might not. You might not know me at all, but I kind of have a feeling you do, because most of the marketing that I've done up to this point has been, on my personal Facebook page, and the people who kind of know me there or have kind of looked at, what I do and connected with me on Facebook, like there's a strong likelihood that that I've done things in SEO, like we rank for firearms in the United States nationwide, and in 1,300 local cities if you wanted to buy firearms. We ranked for paper. It's like single keywords, like nationwide. Like there's some significant things. I say significant just from a perspective of, there's agencies out there who are ranking for extraordinarily long tail keywords that are not competitive, that have no market value, that have no traffic, and they're out there selling every day. And so, I contrast what I can sometimes feel as far as, oh man, like what do I have to bring to the table, with what I've actually done. And so one of the things that I want to kind of help transfer is that feeling of confidence is a feeling. And the best way to get confidence is not to do Wim Hof breathing and a bunch of burpees and get yourself listening to some music that gets you all pumped up, and you go do this stuff, and then after, you have to go do it again and again and again. The best way to get confidence is to actually have done things that are impactful and that you can contribute value through your understanding of actually been like being in the trenches and having delivered results for companies, right? Or for projects or businesses or pay per lead campaigns that you run or whatever else it might be, right? So confidence is something we're going to continue to kind of circle back on like several times. I'm going to do a quick little screen share here, and this, let me see if I can bring it up. It's going to be well, it's going to be what it is, right? This is my notebook, right? And this is the culmination. You can see all the pages on the left there that are folded over. This notebook is filled with only stuff about this exact concept and this exact topic, which is search engine optimization and all this, that, and the other thing, right? But really circling around ranking websites in search engines. Okay. And so for people who might only be listening or they can't see this well enough, we've got SEO that leads to relevant crawls, that leads to multiple crawls, that leads to happily ever after, what came before. We've got organizing information on the web. How is it organized? UMACT, which is kind of the concept that I developed in maybe 2015, 2016. It's developed a little bit further since then, but it's kind of the framework of understanding that I know to date. It's how I operate as far as what we do on page with everybody. UMAC, UMACTE, URL, meta, anchor, content, traffic, and engagement. And I've got a couple asterisks next to traffic because at the end of the day, that's really what we're trying to bring our projects, whether they're client, we're framing a lot of what we're talking about today and in this series around people who own agencies. Somebody might have in their mind that they want to be the number one personal injury attorney in Atlanta, right? And that might be what they want. But the thing that's going to help their business the most is traffic coming to their website that's relevant. And so traffic we're going to circle back around on because it's like search engine optimization is almost a proxy for traffic to your door, which means you have the opportunity to create a relationship with somebody who is already looking for your service. Like traffic is the thing that we're actually after. And then engagement in the last piece. Relevance, I should have put 18 asterisks around that because that's really what this whole game is about. And we're going to circle back around and talk about that a little bit more as we go through. KPIs, key performance, like kind of index the things we pay attention to. Traffic is really the thing that, like, you can report rankings and they can all look good, but your rankings can go up and down any given time. As long as traffic is stable and increasing and improving, you're going to have something very relevant and important to report to your clients. So I really look at traffic as the thing that we're trying to do with search engine optimization. And then what is traffic? I talked about this on one of the other webinars. It's not really traffic. Like somebody who types into their web browser a search phrase, they don't go anywhere. You're not getting somebody that actually takes the time to go and drive to your business to buy a service, right? It's very easy for them to bounce right back out. And so we need to not really think of this as somebody who walked into your business and now it's kind of actually harder for them to leave than it is for them to actually buy. But they're kind of trying to be somewhat courteous and they're trying to weigh out what it took for them to get to you on the web. That's not the case. It's really easy to hit that back button. It's really easy to go to your competitor. And in addition to that, traffic is also not, it's server requests. Like um, any given URL load includes requests from half a dozen, if not more, different web servers. And so as we get more into kind of the technical elements of this, it's one of the reasons that I like to include a lot of properties that Google's kind of like holds near and dear to their heart, embedding maps, embedding YouTube videos, embedding Google badges, embedding different things that Google wants to get kind of more in the forefront of people's minds. These embeds are very important because you load one URL, and if you've got a YouTube video and a map embed and some other things, it's not going to be really counted one for one with someone who just has an article, for instance. Google's going to preferentially weight the page load that includes a lot of their own properties in it, because they're going to start to see like, oh, this is somebody who is so the person that we drove this traffic to is now kind of in the fold, so to speak, with Google, right? With properties that they own.
So they're kind of into nepotism, is what you're saying.
Just a little bit, and as a business owner, I understand that, but trying to cast Google in this light of, I say Google just as a proxy for all search engines. They're really not trying to make search results better for people. That doesn't have, they have no business interest in that. What they want to make sure is that more and more people use their services. It's one of the reasons that position 0 and Insta Answers have shown up more and more and taken up more and more of page one content, because in those cases, Google doesn't ever lose the traffic. It's one of the reasons I don't use AMP. If you use AMP, you're actually putting your website on google.com. I want that traffic. I want that traffic to actually come into my website so that I can help them make a decision that they don't later regret. That's kind of some conversion stuff that we've talked about on other webinars. So if you're on this, you can go back and watch some of the replays that we've had. But one of the things that kind of stands alone right now on the screen share that I have, I don't know, you can see my little mouse, right? Yeah, kind of can. If you're on a desktop, you probably can. So correlation versus causation. This is one of the biggest opportunities, right? I would also say problems, but really opportunities for people to get a handle on. There are a lot of people who do science and who have huge data sets, and they say, oh, well, 90% of the websites that rank on page one have meaningful URLs. So that means meaningful URLs cause good rankings. And they draw that conclusion immediately because of the correlation. That's not the right way to do it. Okay. The right way to do it is to take a nonsense URL and change it and see if rankings improve. That's causation. And so the only thing that I'm going to be talking about tonight is going to be causation. These are things that I have done, and they are things that improve rankings. So this is not huge data sets. This is not a bunch of what people would call science, which is I understand fairly well. But this is stuff that if you do on your websites, on your web pages, it causes rankings to improve because you're not confusing the search engine when they crawl your website to try to understand the nature of your content and whether or not it's valuable and how valuable it might be, right? Got some other stuff over on the left here, passages, entity, and keyword research that we're going to go into. In my estimation, very few people put as much attention into keyword research as they should. And I don't know why that is, right? There's tons of keyword tools that we have. I've got a bunch of different subscriptions to pieces of software that help you research different keywords, but without researching keywords and what I would maybe call search phrases, it's going to be very inefficient for you to know what in the world you're going to put on your website and on your web pages if you don't understand what is, because we don't have to play the correlation game. We can play the causation game, but search engines are going to have to play the correlation game. And the correlation game they give us, right, with related searches, with these keyword tools that tell us what keywords and search phrases are very highly correlated on different websites. So just above that is entity. Entity is huge. I'm jumping kind of around a little bit. I just want to kind of cover. Well, I got this notebook open over here, but entity is really huge because the fact that knowledge graph exists, and knowledge graph is the thing that's typically on the right side of the page if you do a search for a brand name. And if you get knowledge graph, what that indicates, what that implicates, the implication of that thing existing means that the search engine has tied together a lot of your different domains and URLs into kind of one place. And it's using all of those factors to say, hey, this is what that person is about. This is what that business is about. Entity is a core critical thing that I look at doing. And just to quickly intercede, not to slow roll too much, when I build out any project, the first thing I do is keyword research. I get my website done properly, meaning that I've got pages about all of the relevant topics and keywords that are related to the service I want to be able to provide and the core offer or offers that business is going to be able to provide. And from there, I look at things off-site on social platforms and different places like that I can also then brand, right? Branding is kind of a decent word or proxy for these things that are off-site, but they tie together. So I'm looking at Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and these different platforms to make sure that those tell a relevant story that's not confusing. These are the ways that I start all of my my projects online. And then and only then will I start to look at other relevant. I'm going to try to use that word as much as I can, because that's at the core of what we're trying to do here, as far as conveying important information that's true and that is causative of ranking. The more relevant places you are getting, I say getting links. We're gonna, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, because links, I think, can be viewed in a more simple manner that might make more sense to some people. It makes more sense to me, but we're going to talk about like anchor text and some things like that. This definitely, I've also got unconnected down there on the lower left, maps rankings. Maps rankings is something that was kind of one of the first things that I could kind of, dig my heels into and do really well, because I understood how geographic information systems were really feeding this information into someone looking for a car wash or a laundromat or uh, a restaurant that had tacos at 10 p.m. or whatever it might be, right? Those are things that I actually did academically, and then I did professionally for 4 or 5 years. I built algorithms like that were offline, that were specifically built to help businesses make decisions on what they should go try and do and prioritize, right? And then one of the things I kind of put down there in the corner, in the lower right corner, is them come to you versus you go to them. If we kind of take a step back and we look at what you're going to do with every hour of your day, if you're looking at having a job, right, before 2020 is a little bit different, but like if you had to spend an hour going to your job, hour coming back, like you're burning 2 extra hours to even get to the place where business is done. And then you burn your time there and you come home, extra hour again. And so you can wind up spending a lot more time doing that, and it's where you have to go to make money, and I get that, and I think it's a completely valid way to make money, right? Just like a lot of different things that you can do with your marketing, right? If you got to go to them, you got to go to them, but it's gonna it's gonna burn extra time, and one thing you can't get more of personally is time. But what you can do is create systems where other resources, other people, or your website can put that time in for you so that you don't have to spend it yourself personally to be able to get the same results, if not better results. So before I kind of, move on and delve into some of these other things, Glenn, do you have anything else to kind of share or talk about there? I don't want to.
Yes, we need to add an R after UMAC because relevance is where I see people stepping on their toes more often than not. We've heard through countless different trainings that you have to have if you can have your keyword in your URL, it's going to be great. We know when we go and do searches online that typically we're going to see the phrase we're looking for in the meta title or meta description. But this content and relevance are kind of like twin sisters. That if we're not doing them together and not putting it in a manner in which Google can understand and then decide where they're going to deliver you to, you can do a lot of these other things well and miss out on those little fine steps, and you're always going to be pushing a boulder uphill. I've spoken at different events around the country about this and about talking about SEO, and inevitably people mess up their on page because they're chasing this shiny object or this shortcut that other gurus around the country supposedly are trying to share with them. I was asked to consult on this website here a couple months ago. Let me share this real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Because it was interesting.
I think you can. Yeah.
Are you seeing this Paragon plastic surgeon?
I am not seeing that yet.
Hold on a second.
I don't see a place to approve you screen sharing.
Screen share. It's not giving me permissions to share.
Is it a link?
Give me a second. I'm going to text you a link to this page. And do you have Wave up on your Chrome?
Yes.
All right. Pull up this URL if you would for me, Fletch. This is a plastic surgeon in the Dallas Metro that has a good practice. They have some very good specialties, and they wanted to rank around the Dallas Metro. And it's an example of someone that I'm going to guess probably works for two different providers. One person for a website, one person for their SEO. So if you look at the metrics on this, their power coming to their site is similar to the people that are ranking and getting a ton more traffic. Can you hit the wave tool, Fletch?
I was looking at the girl walking away from
I know, you get distracted easily.
Just give me a second. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start looking at this. And what is this website telling Google that it's about? H1, see, feel the difference. Do people search see, feel the difference when they're looking for plastic surgeon, Fletch?
That's not something I would ever assume, nor could see that someone would type into a search box on any search engine.
And we know
but that's what they've told a search engine who's crawling them, right? I think you can kind of see me whittling around this. This is the H1. See, feel the drift. Like that that doesn't necessarily mean anything to Google, Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, whoever it might be.
Yeah, because
It's confusing,
we know
right?
to you, Mac, your H1 is what is the most important thing this page is about, correct?
Well, yeah, it should be as far as the content's concerned, right? We got the URLs and some page titles and things like that, but yeah, as far as the written article, H1, what H1 means, it's like the heading of an article.
Mm-hmm.
So this article is supposed to be about see, feel the difference. Web designers all the time use H tags because it's easier to do that with font, right? They don't want to have to understand CSS and not even understand, but they don't want to have to implement these things to look the way they want it to look. And so they'll just pluck an H1 tag around this thing to make it look the way they want. It conveys nothing to a search engine. Nothing. Actually, it's worse than nothing. It's negative because it's confusing. It does not line up in any way, shape, or form with the lexicon of things this page is supposed to be about. Lexicon just meaning the kind of cloud of words that would convey meaning about this page.
Scroll down a little bit if you would, please.
Sir?
Wait, see, hold on. Welcome to the website. Another H1 tag.
Well, now we've got a second problem here.
Okay, how about our specialties for an H1 tag?
Oh, well, now we've also got some weird formatting with things, but regardless,
that's number 3.
So according to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, as well as any SEO who has ever built websites, you have one and only one H tag per page, per URL, no matter what.
Title architecture, it's 101. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Hey, what our patients say. Patient reviews.
Well, and here's what's even worse, right? What our patients say, there are no keywords. There are no search phrases here that are related to plastic surgery or any of the other services they actually provide. Like, this is the lack of relevance in this is astounding.
Yeah. And this was just a good example I wanted to share with people because inevitably people that struggle with SEO, in my experience, struggle with understanding your on-page architecture, your structure, and everything you need to do, that I look at like it's the foundation for anything you're going to do online. And if you don't figure out this part out, then it's a lot more difficult to do everything else. When you get this part dialed in, SEO is fairly simple. We've worked with hundreds of clients like these that literally just by fixing their website, more often than not, all of a sudden we're increasing rankings in 30 to 60 days, and then we have to worry about outside influences. But this was a good example, and it was a project that someone brought to me a couple months ago to talk to the doctor to explain to him what we could do for them and to actually be able to deliver results for them in 30 or 60 days, not 6 months, 9 months, because the influencing factors were built properly. The website was just in the web pages were just built very poorly from a structure standpoint and from an accessibility with Google standpoint.
Well, and one of the things too that, I guess I could just keep watching this.
Yeah, we better not get distracted.
I'll go ahead and click off of this or else I'll get distracted. Like one of the things, like if you've been doing search engine optimization consulting or you have an agency, you'll kind of realize that the quicker you can get your clients results, the easier it's going to be to retain their services and their payments, right? And if you're doing if all you're doing is building links, which is what a lot of the large agencies do, and a lot of the large agencies will also do on-site stuff, but they don't pay attention to stuff like this, right? Multiple H tags that are completely irrelevant. I saw extraordinarily little relevance on that homepage that would help tie together the content of that page to actually be about, plastic surgery or some of the other services they provide. This is one of the huge problems. I say the huge problems. This is one of the huge opportunities, that people with what we know can go out and just grab, clients like this and say, hey, great looking website, but you've got these massive issues that are keeping you from actually getting traffic from folks who are looking for what you do. And you really don't have to change the way the website looks that much, if at all, to actually give the signal not just to the human, but to the technology. And that's the breakdown. That's kind of the gap that when you start to understand this, you can close quite a bit between web design and search engine optimization. Web design, even web design, I don't. It's not really something that I'm like a hoorah, you know, fan of, because really what this comes down to is getting more clients to pick up the phone and call you. And so I really look at this from a perspective of making sure conversion works, and then making sure that enough people see that, where you're getting phone calls and requests for information and the ability to then, contact you and go through the sales flow. Um, I told a story on a different webinar that we ran, Glenn, and somebody filled out my form on my website, and I looked at the website, and it was one of these websites that is beautiful, right? It looked great. And I started going through some of the technical elements on it, and it was just garbage. Like, it was junk. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, we can get these things right. Like, I look at what we do as SEOs as a mechanic, right? I don't care how pretty the outside is and how many times you polished the paint of a car and waxed it and how shiny it is. If the thing won't run, if it won't handle, if it won't get you from point A to B, that's not really a car I care that much about, right? It's not going to do its job. And there are millions, if not billions, of websites that are on the internet right now that are that. They are all show and no go. I don't mind about the show. I like pretty cars myself. But if they don't have the guts to actually get you motivated, I say motivated, like, these are all car terms, so forgive me for my lexicon. But the website is a vehicle that can, or a conveyor belt, right? That can bring people from seeing it to your front door to be able to talk to them and provide them a service, right? Glenn, you've got kind of a good way of looking at it. You've got kind of two different website types that you've talked about, right? Brochure, and maybe talk about that a little bit. And I think there are so many brochure type websites that the person who procured them, who paid for them, who bought them, didn't really know what in the world. They didn't know about kind of an alternative that can be just as good, if not better, for bringing business in the door.
Yeah, I learned a long time ago that not everyone is going to be an ideal SEO client for the way we do SEO when you're doing it properly. So to be able to have a larger client base and to be able to have more services that I'm getting for reoccurring, we've done web design and managed hosting and stuff like that for years. So inevitably, when I'm talking to a potential client, one of the things that we ask them is, are you looking for your website to be a brochure or a salesperson that's working for you on Google, Yahoo, and Bing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Because that's the biggest difference. I mean, anyone can build a brochure. Anyone can jump onto Wix, Squarespace, any of these builders and build something that looks okay and looks like a website. But how it performs, and when the website starts working for you instead of you working for it, that's a big difference. And if you want a website that's going to work well for the search engines, once it actually works on search engines and you're getting traffic, is actually going to convert on that traffic and convince someone to pick up a phone, fill out a form, doing some way to contact you so you can conduct business. Now that's when you actually have a website that's providing revenue for you, so you can get a return on investment, like you mentioned earlier, instead of just constantly you're spending money just to have more representation out there for you that you have to drive traffic to. You have to put on business cards. You have to put it on your vehicles. You have to put it on different mediums so that you're pushing people and pushing traffic to your website versus your website bringing traffic to you. And that's the biggest difference. Some people, they're not looking for more business. They just want a better brochure, a better portfolio to display what they're doing. And that's fine. We can help them with that. But if they want that website to turn the light switch on and keep the lights on, that's a big difference. And I think that's when you understand how to make the latter part work, then that's a big difference in the service offering you have. And when you can explain that to clients in a manner that they can understand, then they're actually making good decisions for you, for themselves.
Yeah, this is really key. Like, folks, this is one of the reasons I wanted to kind of, set Glenn up for this layup here. But like, there are lots of people who use Wix and Squarespace because they've built a website that from their perspective looks good, and they're proud of it, and they're happy with it, and they're happy with that decision, but they don't understand that they're going to be extraordinarily limited with what it's going to actually do for them as far as the work it provides, right? So they're laying cash out every month to host the thing and to keep it live, and they're probably going to feel kind of happy about the fact they built it and that it looks good and they can show it off to their friends, but that's the only traffic they're going to get, and their friends are already going to be potential customers and traffic anyway. If you're going to look at that conveyor belt of being able to bring traffic from other sources, you've got to think like the difference between a brochure website and a 24/7 salesperson on the web are these elements.
Mm-hmm.
And Glenn rightfully brought up relevance. Relevance is what is the meta of this framework, right? But this framework, the UMAX stuff, like, put your friggin' keywords in the URL. A lot of people, like I say, still to this day, this is going to go on for years. If you default with WordPress, you're going to name a page after some kind of copywriting hook line that you think is going to be catchy, and that's going to be your slug. It's going to be your URL. That's not going to convey anything to a search engine. That's not good, right? Come up with a cool headline. That's all. There's nothing wrong with that, but make sure that you have relevant phrases and search words and keywords in that element to make sure that you're conveying and being easy to understand to technology, right? From there we go into meta, and meta includes when I talk about meta, it can mean a lot of different things, but in this context, what I'm talking about is just meta tags, right? So you're looking at your meta title, your meta description, potentially even your meta keywords. I don't not use those, but I also don't try to like keyword stuff them. There are opportunities for me to include different words that are going to get crawled that my page is about that I don't necessarily have on my page already. Right? It also includes things like schema, right? I won't, I haven't done the test, so I don't necessarily know whether or not schema is an absolute ranking factor, but what it can absolutely be is a way for you to get more words that are crawled that a search engine like Google, and I'm talking about Google just because it's the most advanced one that we have that's really pervasive, right? If you've got search phrase, if you've got words in your schema that are not seen by a human visitor, you can still rank for those. And so incorporating some of these different schema libraries into your website, you can actually rank for, instead of one keyword, many keywords. Were you
Well,
going to say something, Glenn?
yeah, if it's not important, why has Google made it a quality score factor on AdWords?
And why are they a partner in the actual company?
Yes.
Right.
So,
So some of these are like, okay, they're people who do science, and I love that, right? Nothing wrong with that at all. I really like that. But I start to look at like, why would Google put a bunch of money into this thing if they're not paying attention to it? And what I also do know is that anything that shows up in your HTML is something you can rank for. And so if you've got a landing page or a page that you're ranking, it's got a picture and 10 words. Those 10 words and are all you might be able to rank for, unless you start to incorporate and include things like alt text, things like metadata, things like schema, things behind the scenes from a human visitor that a search engine is absolutely going to pick up on and say, oh, this is what this page is about, right? The only other opportunity you have to do that is with pages referring to you, right? And you can absolutely do that. But if you have these factors in place, it makes it much more efficient and effective for you to be able to rank a page, right? Instead of like with Search Explosion, right, which was an agency that I started in 14, give or take. It's been on page 1 of Google for 7 years, right? I'm waiting for the latest algorithm to kind of shake out. Has 5 friggin' links that I built that are of any consequence at all. 7 years for like SEO Phoenix, big search phrase that a lot of people are gunning for. It's been on page 1 for 7 friggin' years. But it was because I paid attention to these factors and I put them in place. And so we're going to kind of circle back around, and I want to really kind of hammer on something that I've taught it one other time at a live event at a digital marketer conference, traffic and conversion, I think was the name of it, or something like that, in LA a couple years ago, 3 years ago or whatever. Right. And it was because this is kind of it wasn't that I was not teaching everything I knew. It was just kind of like, well, this is how you apply this understanding, right? And we're going to talk about a little bit. This webinar, we've kind of tried to keep them kind of tidy and neat and tight, but there's a lot of stuff that I want to at least cover and touch on, so that people get an understanding of how you can apply this understanding. Because what's on this slide right now is all you ever friggin' need to rank, all of it.
Well, and people have a hard time believing this, Fletch. I've shared with you, I spoke at an event down in Orlando a couple years ago, and I was on Sunday to kind of anchor everything to show people all the things that we were bringing up during the first 2 days about why they had problems. And so I did an example and showed an insurance company that I wasn't working with anymore, how we built out and we did everything from U to C. We weren't talking about T&E, just building a web page right, having all your architecture and all your on page done properly with one link going to that page. And it was kind of funny because this was it was someone else's event. I was just speaking at it. I was training on page. And after the Sunday was over, we're walking to dinner, and this guy from Baltimore comes up to me and he goes, I went through and took a look at that web page. There is only one link going to it. And I just kind of looked at him and I said, was I trying to sell you something? He said, no. I said, then why would I lie to you? I was trying to help you to understand that if you get this down A to B, U to C, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
optimization is pretty simple.
Yeah, you just want to be clear, right? So the first rule of conversion. So let's talk about conversion, right? Don't confuse somebody.
Well,
Okay, so let's look at conversion from a technical aspect for SEO. Don't confuse the bot.
Yeah. Your first conversion factor is Google. And if you confuse them, they're not going to deliver anywhere. If you can treat them like a third grader and make it easy for Google to understand, life's a lot easier.
Yeah, and so just be clear on your pages, right? There's talk, and I won't say there's anything wrong with it, but like people talk about keyword cannibalization and different pages switching. Well, like it really comes down to having several pages about the same thing, and a search engine not being able to understand which one's more important. And so it's about confusion. So just don't confuse, right? And so on a single page, make that single page about a topic, and make use of tools you have, like H tags, like bold, like anchor. Anchor is a huge thing, right? It's the third one on this list. So to give folks an idea of the way I look at anchor text, Like a lot of people would think about a page and you've got like multiple pages linking to it. And so you look at the anchor text regarding the page that you're actually like ranking, right? I don't look at it that way, and I think there's valid reasons not to. Anchor text actually exists on a different page. Anchor text means that this page has something about that topic that is anchor text. And so if this page has something about War of 1812 and it's linking with that anchor text over here, and this whole page is about the War of 1812, this page, because it has something about it, about the War of 1812 and some contextual content around it, that's why we call them contextual anchor links. If there's context around this with anchor text in there, that page is about the War of 1812 to some degree, but it's saying, oh, the fuller explanation is over here on this other page. And so you want to build a lot of these types of things around you that point back to the page you are intending to rank for War of 1812. And in doing that lets you be so much more efficient with the thing that is, well, from my experience, right? And there's a lot of different ways to make it fairly easy anyway, but links are expensive, right? They're harder to get. You've got to go out and try to find places to do that. Well, you can build a lot of your own links on your own friggin' website. You can build supporting content. Supporting content is how I make use of my understanding of anchor text. If I've got a page that I want to rank for the War of 1812, I'm going to build out 5 or 10 pages, maybe more, depending on how competitive that search phrase is, that include a phrase or an element or an H tag that's about the War of 1812 that's going to link back to the page I want to rank. And then after all the smoke settles, I might need some external links coming in, but I won't need nearly as many. And those links can go to that page directly, or they can come into the supporting content. And it's kind of like a lock and a key, right? If you send a link with War of 1812 to supporting content, that link juice, or however you want to look at it, it's only going to be able to flow through that thing that it's already got the key for, which is that anchor text, right? And so I don't try to overly spam what would be called a tier 2 link, but it's only going to flow through the stuff that's relevant to go back to the page that is about the main topic that somebody might be looking for. And so in this way, you can spend your resources more appropriately, which is to build more content on your page or your projects, right? We want to own the content that we're putting money into on the web. We want those to be on our website because it's just it's you don't want to spend money on stuff you don't own, unless we're talking about some very esoteric, like financial things where you don't want to really own things and you want to just have control of them or whatever, right? It's kind of, that's the same manner of what we're doing with SEO. You want to be able to control these assets way out here at tier 2 to flow juice and influence back through your website to be able to rank your main piece of content for that money keyword. And I think in that way, a lot of people could improve their understanding of anchor text. Anchor text lives on the page where it lives, not where it points. Where it points is important, but it lives on the page where it exists. And in that way, using things like table of contents and URI links is incredibly important, because what it does is thematically create relevance on that page that then says, over there is that good stuff too, right? That's why I use them. I don't know, Glenn, if you have anything to say about that, but it's why I employ them on a lot of my projects.
Yes. Can we put relevance up by nuts and bolts, please, on all these slides? Because I think that was the one thing you kind of were glassing.
Well, hey, Glenn, I got other slides here, buddy. This was slide number 5 of a presentation that I did a couple of weeks ago. So this whole thing is about relevance. Like the whole everything you're trying to do with Google is be relevant and be important.
Well,
That's it.
because here's a prime example with that. And it back to just emphasize your point about spending money and working smarter versus harder and maybe not spending as much money. We have ranked several sites with overdoing relevance and focusing more on relevance than authority. Now, what that means is I've had sites in a niche that we've interlinked all these sites because they're all about the same type of business, the same type of services, the same type of products you want to rank for. And just by interlinking those in a way that makes sense, it's kind of like a link share. I'm a plumber, you're a plumber. We link back and forth to each other's sites, things that are normal in Google's eyes. And we've done two things. All of those sites' rankings have gone up, and without external links to build authority to increase ranking factors, whether you're talking about Moz, Majestic, anything like this.
Yeah, the metrics and things, right?
Yeah. All their scores went up collectively as a group without any external influence to make it more authoritative in these different ranking systems' eyes. So I think, in my opinion, relevance always will trump authority. Unless you're something that, if you're 0 and everyone on the first page is 80, then you're not in the same ballpark. But when everything is relative, you can get a lot further with relevance and authority.
Yeah, I really, so the word signal, like, I don't want to get like kind of, well, yeah, I do. I think about all this stuff. So I geek out on this. It's like a radio station, right? So if you've got a RF broadcaster, radio frequency broadcaster, and you can get it really tuned in to be at 89.5 FM. Well, so if you're 5 feet away, you might be able to pick that up. And it can be clear as a day, great sound, all this kind of thing. But the further you move away from it, it might start to get fuzzy. You might get interference. You might get all this stuff. And at that point, you need to increase the power of the signal that's coming in. So with low-hanging fruit, all you need to ever worry about is relevance. But the more potential competition and interference that you're going to get from other places, the more you have to increase that signal strength. And only then do you need to really worry about adding more and more power. And there's a lot of instances where that is the case. But you can add power in a lot of ways. Like Glenn talked about, and I was mentioning before, you can add supporting content. You can, if you're doing like PBN model or my quality site-based model, you can add supporting content over here that really bolster the power of that page that's linking back to you. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can add power that don't add cost at the same rate as going out and so, but then, like, coming full circle back to one of the core things I want to talk about today is, okay, this is all you ever need to do. But if you are the only person doing it, your impact is going to be limited. If you are the only website that's talking about how relevant you are to search engine optimization in Phoenix, and nobody else is helping you provide power and authority out there, your reach is going to be drastically limited. It's going to be a limiting factor. That's the whole concept of this web series that we've been running. What is limiting your effectiveness as an SEO? And okay, here's the slide. There it is. Go do that. And if you can sit down at a computer and work 16 hours a day, and you've got the resources to buy websites and write this content yourself and do videos and embed the videos and do all that kind of stuff, that's great. More power to you, because that's how I had to start. But in order to get to a different level of impact, right, so that radio frequency transmitter can go a lot of different places with any project you work on, you've got to be able to take this framework and systematize it so that other people can get these factors in place properly for you and for your projects, so that you can help that person make money with what you've taught them to do, and that you can make part of that money yourself. And from my perspective, with where I am right now, that is the place where I need to go to the next level. Right. And one of the things that I like Glenn. I've known Glenn for since 2013 or something like that. But one of the big reasons that I wanted to kind of, that we partnered up, and that I was very open to fleshing this out, is that one of the things that Glenn had that I had not really put in place was a way to implement these factors without having to himself write all the articles, make sure all the meta was in place, all the anchors were right, all this kind of thing. There were systems that were there to deploy that on a much greater level. So it's one of the reasons why I kind of started with the introduction here, is that in all likelihood, if you know me, you probably bought some SEO training, or you know that you know enough about SEO to kind of be dangerous, right? You can kind of do some things. But what takes that and gets you the thing you want out of it is being able to have more power. This is really about power, right? We can talk about relevance, and I say giving away relevance. There's tactics in here too, right? It's like, well, how do I figure out what the related keywords are? How do I know what support pages to build? How do I know what I can do on a page to not trigger a penalty? Like there's a lot of tactics in there. There's a lot of different thresholds that you have to pay attention to, but it's not overly complicated. But what you have to think about is, how am I going to actually change the way I approach what I know, so that I don't lose track of this stuff? This is always going to be something I can fall back on and I can do myself. But if I want to have a greater impact, and if you're trying to make more money, the only way to do that is to have a greater impact, period. And so we're talking explicitly about the impact you have in search engines and your deployment of these factors. You've got to have systems in place where these things can get built based on what you know, and you taking that stuff out of your head and getting somebody else to do it as good as you, maybe a little bit less than you, maybe better than you, because they're going to continue to hone and work on whatever you hand them. Right, Glenn? I riff on this a lot, right? Because this is something that, even maybe talk about Morpholio, right? And kind of some of these things that came out. I've got a kiddo knocking on my door. I'll be right back, though. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, this goes back to some of my background. Before I moved into sales, I actually was in business management for different companies. So to be able to develop systems, develop processes, develop ways for the businesses that I was in charge of running in order for them to grow, in order for them to be more profitable and to be more efficient. So what Fletch was kind of referring to was when I was had our agency was maybe a year or two old at this point, and I was really getting to that point where I couldn't do everything myself and do everything in 10 hours a day. And who really wants to work 10, 12, 14 hours a day? So I'd reached out to someone else, and they put me in contact with Joe, because Joe had worked with virtual assistants overseas for years. And Joe was kind enough to jump on a call with me, kind of run through some things. And he said, "Hey, I'm just getting ready to put this course out. If you keep your mouth shut, you can have all the course, all the trainings and stuff like that," which I was very grateful. So I said, sure, and didn't tell anybody about that back in 2014, 2013, something like that. And so it was able to help me grow our business the way I wanted to grow it. Because if you want to grow beyond the time limits that you have, you really have three choices. Either A, you hire employees, which I think employees should be a four-letter word. That's just me. You hire strategic partners to do it, or you hire someone that you can outsource to work for you, kind of like an employee, but they're a vendor. So it's just a little different relationship. So for years now, we've had a team of virtual assistants working for us overseas. And so what I had to do for this to work and to stay ahead and be proactive was I had to have systems in place for every part of our business that I was going to use an outsourcer for. So if it's someone that's doing citations, I had to have specific systems. This is where you go. This is how you do this. This is where you do on that one. Kind of like a PowerPoint and or a video for each different property and how I wanted that property created, so that when you bring on more clients, and all of a sudden, instead of having one person doing this task, if you need 2, 3, or 4, people can go to your page, whether it's an Excel, however you're managing your people, and they can all follow the same process, the same instructions, so that you can get consistently the same results. It's kind of, if you look at the reason why McDonald's, Walmart, not Walmart company stores, but McDonald's, a lot of these companies that are franchises are very successful because they have systems in place that the burger stays here, you put the burger here, you do this, that, and the other. That way you have a consistent taste, a consistent meal, if you will, when you're anywhere in the country, going over and having a burger at McDonald's, a burger at Wendy's, chicken somewhere else. Sorry, Fletch's computer's going a little bit crazy right there, but we're all good. So yeah, we were able to put processes in place for that. We put processes in place for web design. So when you look at that, one thing I'll say with that is, I think everyone should really look at where they're at, what they want to do personally and professionally, because I've never been a fan of someone saying, if you want to make $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, you have to do this. What's your goal? What's your you that makes you happy? If it's $5,000 a month and working 20 hours a week, well, how can you do that? It's easier if you have systems, relationships in place to do that. If you want to make, $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, $30,000 a month, $100,000 a month, well, it's a lot easier to grow when you have systems in place. That way, I know I can deliver this, so I'm going to be more willing to pitch bigger projects, pitch different services. And then B, it just makes everything easy along the road. As I've shared with Fletch, I think we brought on 4 or 5, I think this week, maybe as of today, was 6 clients in the last about 3 or 4 weeks around an election year during COVID. And some of them are large ones that we're doing SEO for a couple hundred cities. Some are small ones that we're doing SEO for 3 cities. But there's no fear to bring anything on because we have systems in place. We know how to take a look at these keywords like Fletch was talking about. We know how to build everything properly. So, literally, a guy I talked to this morning signed an agreement. I've got to get a check to him. We'll do one call. From that call in a form, I send everything off to my lead VA that disperses things out to other people. And when it's done, they send it back to me. I proof something, and then I talk to the client and say it's done. So it's kind of one of those things that the larger we've gotten because of systems, the less time I have to work in my business, and the more I can work on my business, developing these different things so that I can, again, bring on more clients, help more people in other countries, have better lives there, do different things with my children here to help them kind of get involved in these things. So these systems are inevitably important. And when you have systems to help you bring on the right clients, systems to know how to communicate with those clients so that you can set a frame, set an expectation so that you're setting yourself up to win, systems to come bring them on so that when you bring on a new client, everything's taken care of, systems to understand really how easy optimization can be. This industry isn't that difficult if you just put the right processes in place.
Yeah. So Glenn, well, after I messed up the screen share, I forgot I left that on. But anyway, I figured out technology pretty quickly once I got back. One of the things that I would try to draw people's attention to here is that people came on here in all likelihood about SEO, and if you're an SEO, I'm gonna try to talk about that from the perspective of a mechanic or a framer. I've been both. I've done those professionally as a trade. I my entire life have been a trade worker. Okay, even if the trade was sales, I've done some sales myself as well. My trade was the thing. It was being a mechanic. It was framing houses. It was doing whatever. There is a massive difference in what I earned framing houses versus the person that was the home builder or the developer who actually hired me to frame houses properly. And I was happy. I was making, decent money if I worked more. But here's the issue. To bring on a big client, if I was doing that myself, if I wanted to make 3 times more money, I had 3 times more work to do. That is what we are trying to help people get not out of, because it's not a bad place, but it's a place where you're limited and where you're not making the most out of what you know and what you can know, and be able to let other people do what they do well as in addition, right? Your trade needs to shift to, what do I need to do to have a greater impact? And you have to move more toward being a business owner, entrepreneurship. Neither one of those terms I'm really like, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a bit. No, this is about having a greater impact. And there's only so much I can do because I only have so many hours, right? I know how to do this stuff on page, but there's only so many hours I can go in there and do this myself. And I know that that's limited, not just in how much I can be awake, because sitting in front of this computer day in, day out for long hours will take its toll. And I've hit those walls myself.
Well, and I realized a few years ago that I hadn't really created a company. I'd created a darn good job for myself.
Darn good job, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with saying I'm an SEO and I make good money per hour.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But
if I don't do that, money can go away. If I'm not there to answer the phone and the client calls, that can go away. So I had to make different changes, different parts of the system, so that I can go away and play if I like, and the company still keeps running and keeps humming, and the customers are still happy, and they keep paying. Because if they don't keep paying, I can't go play.
You can't go play. Your people don't get paid. Nobody makes any money. Your clients don't make money. Your people don't make money. You don't make money.
Yep.
Right. So you got to have these things in place. So I brought up this other little thing. And this is kind of, I was playing around with the idea of, let me see if I can add this back in here. Yeah. So I was playing around with War of 1812, and I'm just trying to stay somewhat consistent. Right. So we're going to circle back to, now we talked about Anchor and ways you can use that. Right. But content is something I think a lot of people underestimate. A lot of the training that I've seen, a lot of the people that I've heard talk, and I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on training and been part of training that was worth a lot of money as well. But content was like, how many words, right? And you put your main keyword in there a few times, right? And why do we do that? It's like, oh, so that page can rank and be indexed by that keyword. And so we say, okay, well, this is one of the things that Glenn and I have talked about, and I don't disagree with this. Google doesn't rank websites; it ranks web pages, right? But I'm going to take this a little bit of a step further and say that Google has the ability to not just rank web pages, but it ranks sections of web pages. And how I can say that, because right here we've got a section of a web page on page 1 at position 2 with an insta answer that is a section of this web page. So in your content, if you are not paying attention to your lexicon, latent semantic index, and generating content with related keywords in such a way in a single phrase that Google can understand that a single paragraph or 2 paragraphs can really be the exact thing it wants to show, you're not taking full advantage of the way Google works. And this is how Google works right now, and it's been doing this for a while. This is a patent that they filed called Passages that talks about the proximity of related keywords to each other in the content of a web page. If you don't have in place a system of getting content produced that includes highly relevant phrases in close proximity to each other in a single piece of content on a single URL, you're going to miss the ability to get into this. Now, War of 1812, I can read about it, when it lasted, conflict between the United States and Great Britain over British violations, maritime rights. Well, I want to know more about that. The only So this is Wikipedia. This is Britannica, right? I'm going to click on this because I want to know more about it. But if Britannica didn't have this in place, they wouldn't be right here, right? Do you see? Well, Britannica's all the way down at position 3, but because it had a good phrase, it had a good paragraph in its content, it popped up here as well. And what do people ask? Right? I've heard some people talk about this. This is not an original idea I had, but it's not so much a search engine that Google is an answer engine. It is answering questions people have. You need to strongly consider revisiting how much attention you pay to getting good content written. And I say good content that delivers answers to through search engines to people, right? You need to pay attention to those things because more and more, like this is not something that was here 5 years ago, Glenn, right? For people who are kind of new to that, this is something new. This is the direction that Google is heading. Google already knows it has all the traffic. Everybody goes to Google to get answers. Okay, I'm just going to keep them on Google if I can. Because if they're on Google, well, War of 1812 is not a great keyword for pay-per-click, but other search phrases, it is. So the more times I can load answers that keep people on Google that have pay-per-click around it, the better off I'm going to be if I'm speaking from Google's perspective, right? And so, like I said, the meta of the UMACT, which URL meta, anchor text, content, traffic, and engagement is relevance. Like, how did Britannica get that? Right? It had a lot of supporting content in all likelihood on that page, which was here. I would imagine it has some page links, right? So we got United States here, Treaty of Ghent. Right? These are all links, right? It has its own top questions on the page, right? These are just things like paying more attention to your content is a very efficient way of getting more attention, more relevance built into your web page, which you actually own, right? This is Google, but Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, whatever search engine you're using, they all kind of work the same way. And so I would strongly suggest for people to pay a lot more attention to the content they have on their pages and on their website before going out and looking for links. Links are easy but expensive, right? And that's great. It's a fine way to grow your rankings for single keywords. I say single keywords because if you're not paying attention to your content, you're only paying attention to your links. Those links are coming from pages that are about a single keyword, and the anchor text is that keyword. That's the only keyword you're going to rank for. If you pay attention to your content and you control the source of the links coming in, and those include a lot of other keywords as well, a single page can rank for dozens or hundreds of keywords at the same time. And this is one of those scalar efficiencies that I wanted to talk about today. And one of the primary reasons that I'm not streaming this to Facebook and YouTube, like this is not stuff that a lot of people are doing, and there's a huge value to this. But then again, it comes back to, okay, well, yeah, I'm seeing the value. Like, yeah, this is absolutely what I want to do, and I need to do this. But I got to be able to put this in place in a way where I'm not sitting down every day for 12 hours to write one article, right? You've got to be able to understand what it takes to do these kinds of things so that then you can now like train somebody else to do that. And that was one of the key pieces that, having worked with OMG for a long time, I was trying to teach people things to help them understand it. But that was from a level of like understanding, which I think is foundational, primary, and the best place for me to have applied what I did. But I did not take that and translate it to systems where somebody who didn't understand it all, they could just go through and follow these steps and the result would occur. right? I would still need to be responsible for making sure the system delivered the results, but the person doing the system didn't necessarily have to understand it all. And that then is the gap that I got to make as a profit. And that is really in that way, with sales, with onboarding, with lead generation, the other kind of 4 main pillars that we're talking about in this webinar series, that gap between what you know and what you can make sure other people are trained to do well, that gap is your profit. That's really what it comes down to.
Well, thanks for reminding me we're not sharing this, Fletch. Since we're not streaming it live,
Yeah.
let's do this. We'll go over the same project I spoke about 2.5 years ago, and I haven't been paid by this client for over 4 years. So we open up another window and do a search for me, please?
Yes, sir. Not a problem. Here, let me get this going real quick. It takes me like 5 clicks to get this open.
Get all these settings worked out on this brand new computer. I love this new computer, but it bites me sometimes. Type in business insurance.
Let me go to Google. DuckDuckGo is my default anymore. For anybody interested, business what?
Insurance, Fountain Valley, California, or CA. It'll auto-populate. It should. There you go. So if we look, so you're doing it from Phoenix.
Yeah, so I got a different IP location, so it might be a little different than people actually.
You see the maps, right?
Yes.
What's above the maps?
We got a position above the maps, which occurs sometimes, but rarely and less frequently nowadays. Yes.
That's the page that has one link coming to it.
So this is something that I have had to buy on numerous occasions when I had 2 different offices, and I didn't understand my liability, nor actually getting into the leases even on those facilities. They said I had to have a certain amount of liability insurance for my location and this, that, and the other thing. And that is the exact keyword, not in Fountain Valley, California, obviously, but that's the exact keyword I typed in. And they, they were somebody who got, I don't know, I can't remember my premiums, but $1,500, $1,600. And all they had to do was just send me paperwork and I signed it. They never had to pay a dime. I had to have it to get my lease. And every single person who is in a position where they have to have business insurance to do a certain thing, which any brick and mortar commercial location will have to have this if you're leasing. And many people who don't have a brick and mortar and just go to other people's houses are going to have some sort of liability insurance on that, right?
Yeah. So
this is a money keyword is what I'm getting at. Yeah,
exactly. We didn't build these sites. He's built another site. We had to go and do some edits for him. But you know what? It's just to make sure that when your on page is dialed in, it's pretty easy to rank. And for people that work in the insurance niche, I would ask them, your clients, about business insurance, because it's a lesser search phrase than auto, car, and stuff like that. But when you own a business, how many business owners, Fletch, don't own a multitude of cars and homes and stuff like that typically? So that's why this guy loves business insurance, because people have insurance on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars, maybe a building, maybe an office, different things like that. So they definitely will increase the average value of that client.
Well, and what I like here, right? I don't know, inssolutions.com. Farmers, outranking farmers.
There's
below the full, outranking State Farm, outranking Allstate.
All those sites have a much higher DA than his does.
Much higher, I would imagine, right? Especially if you only sent really one link to this page.
One link,
right? But this is so I kind of know the way you build website. This is about relevance. It's about supporting content. It's about making sure that you've got stuff that you can do very affordably, very easily, that you fully control, to make sure that the page you want to have rank floats really, really well with limited external budget, meaning you're paying for stuff off of your own website or your clients' websites at a much lower rate than other people will have to. So even people who are providing great services and are doing it only through links are going to have to spend more on this. And so they're either going to have to charge more, or there's going to be like a bigger margin. Maybe they can be a better salesperson, but that's one of the reasons we talked about sales and one of these other things. Like, you need to have a good system of understanding whether or not the two of you should work together, being able to communicate the value you bring to the table, like all of those kinds of things. Like, these are huge opportunities. And this is not like Fountain Valley, California. I don't know where that is. I lived in California, a couple different places. I don't know what that town is.
Just north of Huntington Beach, just up beach, next city.
Well, when I was down there, I was just driving back and forth to Riverside. So
Yeah.
I knew the 91 cities, and that was about it. Maybe
Mhm.
the 55s. That was about all. But anyway, so there's a couple things, right? And so this is the piece we're talking about, creating content that's relevant, that supports your ranking content. But the ranking content can support itself. Like, in all likelihood, there are pages on this website, and I haven't asked Glenn about this explicitly. There are other pages on this website ranking for different keywords that are actually linking to this. Like, what is the best link you can have? It's a link from another relevant page that's actually ranking.
Yeah, I see there's only one link going to this page. All the pages are interlinked. So you have 50 pages probably on here that each of them have one very strong link going to them, but then it's going to nearby cities, nearby locations, stuff like that. So it only has one direct link. It has indirect links, internal
Like
links.
on page or on site links,
Yes.
but a link coming from an external source, an external domain, there's one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so this is the nature of being able to deliver your clients incredible results by building their asset properly.
Mm-hmm.
This is not somebody who's going to leave you, right? Because there's no place they could go that that could deliver these kinds of results for the price that you probably charge them.
No, and it doesn't hurt that link is free from a domain of 100. So that always helps a little bit.
So, and then now we're talking about seed sites and some, different things you can do with Google and YouTube and different properties that really carry a whomp, right? And so, we can go around and around, but like your web, here's one thing I will tell you, right? Let me see if I can find like going back to this, right? This little notebook thing that I've been kind of working on for a while. You'll see kind of in the upper left quadrant there, I've got like crawl. You're actually going to get crawled multiple times from Google. And Google is going to consider where it came from and what the content of that page was based on then where it crawls to. And so in that scenario that Glenn just shared, which is for somebody outside of Glenn's business to know about, that is a ridiculous amount of value. But it's going to get crawled from every relevant, it's going to get crawled from every page linking to the page that was ranking. And if each of those pages is relevant for that search query, that carries a huge whomp. Like I say, we know, maybe we don't know. Relevant content linking to you is massive. And we I think a lot of times think about only ways that we can get links from external websites. And I'm not saying those are bad. Those are great. Those are one of the ways that the bot will actually get to your site and be able to crawl. But it's going to crawl each and all of those pages to get back to that page that Glenn showed that's ranking there. And each of those is going to build the trust in something I called a long time ago, before I even read the patents and understood how they worked, content clusters, right? And so the actual patents in place that Google filed a long time ago, that this is the way search engine optimization works. It's about mature clusters, like cluster maturation. And mature just means that the bot has crawled from many different pages and found the page, and the bulk of that crawl and everything that it indexed and found is about your topic. And at that point, you have a mature cluster, and that page is going to rank as well as the other pages for their explicit topic as well. That is how I've built websites for a long time now. There's documentation in place with patents and the USPTO and all that kind of thing. There's also evidence that Glenn just showed you as to the fact that it works, and it works incredibly well. And so we're you know, in our actual training that we've got this whole thing we've been doing has been kind of building and leading to the fact that we actually have a course on all of the details of all this kind of thing and putting all these things in place. You know, we're going to talk about that later, but I did like you're hopefully you're getting a ton of value out of this, and you can understand that like there's some different ways you can do things that will make a huge difference in your business. But really what this is going to be about is there's a different way you need to think about what you know so that you can get it in other people's hands so you can have a much greater impact even on what you know if you don't even increase the amount of stuff you know. And that process is really one of the things that we want to help bring your attention to.
Later, we've had these people on here for an hour and 40 minutes, Fletch. How much longer?
Okay, well, we should wrap up here pretty soon. I got through UMAC. I talked about content. Really traffic, you know, I'll hit a couple of these. So this is the nature of it, right? One slide and there's 2 hours of content. We didn't even get to dig into all the details on all this stuff, but traffic isn't just traffic. You know, I can sit here and I can type something into a web browser. Web browser goes out to DNS and it says, where can I find this URL? And then that goes and finds the web server, and then that web server serves up the raw HTML. But that raw HTML is going to have Google fonts in it. It might have some iframes in it. It might have a bunch of different things. And so like traffic's not really a single thing. It includes more. It's one of the reasons that we build our web pages the way we do, because we want to optimize and maximize the impact that we get with one single load request from a single URL, right? And then engagement, time on site, time on page. Somebody hits play on the video. If they scroll around the map a little bit, click on the pen, bring up the information, whatever that might be, it's engagement. How much time they spend on the page reading the article, which if you write good articles, that's what people are going to be doing. Those are both. So these are all the factors. These are like all the factors. I'm not saying that engagement is more important than URL. I don't believe it is, but these are all the factors. They're all on that one slide. So what we're going to dig into more in the actual training, and this is just the SEO training. We've run 5 other webinars on, well, systems in general, like helping people understand why these are so important to be able to get things that actually work without you being personally involved. Lead generation, which means that people are going to continue to be interested in what you've got going on, closing sales, and then onboarding those prospects in a way where they're like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever since sliced bread. This is just the SEO one, right? I suggest like there's a lot that we just can't cover, you know, for free on an hour and a half, 2 hour webinar. So that's kind of the nature of what we've got in the program that we have put together. But go ahead, Glenn.
Well, I'm just saying, I think it's important that we're talking about SEO for people that are going to be doing SEO, because someone made the comment that, you know, when you look at where you're going, it's kind of hard to put the dots in place. It's a lot easier to look at where you've been. So once you understand SEO and you're comfortable with it and confident with it, then it's easy to go back and start looking at prospecting, lead gen, sales, systems, and stuff like that. Because if you're not comfortable with the end, you're never going to go out and sell the front part of it. So we kind of have to start at the end and work our way back. But once you do that and you understand what it takes to do prospecting and lead generation, you understand what the numbers are you're going to have to do, depending on how comfortable you are. Once you learn how to have a conversation with people. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it was that Steve Jobs guy.
That dang guy. He didn't do too much to impact the world.
No. Once you learn how to have a conversation, how to actually have a sales process, and not to show up and throw up when you're talking to people and try and sell them. No one likes salespeople, but they love solution providers. Once you learn how to do those things properly in a system that you can replicate over and over again, and then you'll know that you're wholeheartedly can fulfill anything you're doing, whether it's something you're doing yourself or something you're outsourcing, something you have a partner with. It just makes life a lot easier, guys, when you understand frontwards to backwards what you're providing to people. Inevitably you're using systems that have been, developed over years and years and years. It's kind of an easy business to work in, and kind of easy to set yourself apart from all the other commodities out there, like the other companies that are just selling the same thing over and over again, selling on price, people that are easy to get rid of, especially in a down year like this. It's kind of easy to become the person, become the trusted advisor, the professional the businesses look to in times like this for other solutions, other advice, other ways that you can help them grow their business.
Yeah, Glenn, I was looking for the actual sales page we have. This actually formally launches next week, right? We wanted to wrap up the kind of lead into this and the contextualization and all that kind of thing. What's the URL on Web Alley
The
for
one
the?
we're supposed to have done today and didn't get done.
Yeah, that one.
I think I
Well,
know.
yeah. So, like, one of the things that we wanted to do with this whole thing, right, is to make sure that we covered the bases and that we could help bridge the gap um, between where a lot of the people that we've interacted with are and where we know we can help them get to in a like mindset, right? Mindset isn't a word I really like that much, but there's something about it, which is that you can actually see things from a different frame. And I know that's been one of the things that has held me back the most in my own personal business, even though I've done extraordinarily well compared to a lot of my friends or people that I worked with, or people I hung around or whatever. Being able to make as much money as I've made online, like, the income differential is massive. But I also know that what I know has made millions or tens of millions of dollars for other people. But what I did not take the time to do, and I didn't take the time to do this because I didn't see why it was so important, why it was going to be so impactful to me and those people that I worked with, is to take the time to understand what I actually knew and could get it into a system where other people could follow instructions as opposed to like fully understanding the whole thing. Right. And so this webinar was really designed to help you start to see things from a different frame. So it's not all the instructions on this webinar. It's not in this training. What I really hope to convey is that you can start to see things from a different frame. And in so doing, say, okay, I know enough. I might need to know a little bit more to know that what I'm putting in place is guaranteed to work for every single person. I might need to pay attention to it, do some, QA, QC, quality assurance, quality control on making sure that the people that I have hired or paid to do these things are actually following through and doing them properly. But the the gist of it is that you're right now at the level. I'm right now at the level. Everybody here is at the level of what they understand currently, taking into account all these contradictory beliefs that they have and that I have, right? So we're where we are for a reason. It's based on what we believe and how we see things. So if we can start to look at things differently, we can achieve much greater results with the exact same or less effort. And I say effort, not like the number of hours you work. In all likelihood, that's going to go down as well. But effort in so far as like talking about how much internal conflict you have in actually doing a thing. Like, if you know that, hey, right now I got to sit down and I got to write this article and it needs to have this research that goes into it or whatever, but I know exactly that this is the thing that's going to open things up for me. That's not really effort. It's some work, but you're not going to feel conflicted like, oh, well, maybe I should be doing something else. Right. What we really want to convey is that, like, these are 4 areas in your business that if you open each of them up, it completely changes the playing field on where you operate and how you look at things, knowing that you're looking at things that are important and that they're going to move the needle for you. Right.
Yeah, and if sales is stuff that people struggle with, or anyone that's on the call, I mean, just a quick example, in the last 17, 18 years, I've sold 15 to $20 million worth of advertising myself. And I've led teams that we've sold over hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's definitely something we can help people be more confident, be more comfortable in, and definitely can help them get results.
Yeah. So what we have right now, and we're going to be running probably some webinars next week as well, Glenn. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got what we kind of saw as a boot camp. And the reason we wanted to run it as a boot camp, one was that Glenn's in the military.
Army training, sir.
But the other was that I know that you can get into digital marketing and you can kind of start to get comfortable. And when you're given a year or 18 months or as long as you want with getting to the next level, it can feel like, well, I'll get to that tomorrow or whatever. And while the training that we have is not going away, when you buy, you get access to it, as long as we keep the website up, which we have no intention of taking away. But we want to go really deep and intensive with making sure that people get these results in 3 months or less, right? You might get results in a week. You might get results in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 12 weeks or, half a year. But we want to be able to go really hardcore in making sure that you are fit to serve, so to speak, in 12 weeks or less. And so the reason we're running this as kind of a boot camp style training is that we want to make sure that people are invested enough and immersed enough to actually move that needle and help people see things differently than they do currently, as quickly as possible, but not quicker than needs to be the case, right? So the website is I'll do we have a way to drop this in chat? No, we don't. I'll grab this and put it on a notepad for people
The
who
screen
are watching. Yeah, we'll also everybody who we have on here, one of the reasons we did this with needing to opt in to watch the webinar is so we can email you back. So we'll email this link to you as well, but I'll bring this up in a notepad here and drop it to people who want to check it out. Oops. See what we got here.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
Salespeople, I think this is about the best way to do it because as Fletch and I have chalked this over and over and poked holes into it, I looked at training salespeople, and you really had 3 different ways that I had to train people. I had some that were just hard chargers, people that could pick stuff up real quick, that we can give the overview of it. And so literally all the stuff that I'm going to be training on sales and all the stuff that you could really just pick up if that's what you need, you can go through all the videos now, get enough of a gist of it to run. Some other people then need you to kind of go through one time and kind of go through those things. And so that's what we're going to be doing for the first month, is really going through the different processes and aspects of sales. And then some people need a little bit more role play, a little bit more over the shoulder training. And so that's why we're going to be doing this, for the next 12 weeks, is so that we can help people get to the levels they want to attain, no matter how they learn and how they have to kind of come about these things. So we really kind of want to make sure that we had a system for training that would meet every individual's kind of requirements.
Yeah. And also, like, this is a sales webinar because we dropped a sales link, right? But this is not like a sales webinar. Like we're going to go more into the details of what you get, like piece by piece next week, and talk more about really what it means to get these systems in place. And the reason that is so I won't say it's so important is because, like, when I first saw OMG Machines, I watched a single webinar. I did not read the sales letter. I did not do anything else other than listen to Mike and Greg sit on a couch and talk about things. And I could just kind of tell that Greg knew what the hell he was talking about so here's the thing. This is about SEO, but it's about one other thing than SEO. It's making money with SEO. Well, when you add that element in, it expands significantly. And from my experience, the quickest way to actually make money with SEO is to have an agency, because you can go out and sell today and you can have money in your pocket today, and you can continue to do that as long as you know your systems aren't going to break. As long as you know you can continue to bring more leads in, you can close those sales, you can onboard them, and you can actually provide them with the service. If you have all of those things, you can just continue to do that, right? At whatever rate you're comfortable with. And so one of the things that we want to do during this boot camp is to help you realize that kind of comfort level is going to have been set by a lot of different factors in your life. I, from my own personal experience, went through a lot of times when, I was broke. I was living in a car. I was living on people's couches. I was living with, girlfriends, whatever it might be. And there were other times when I was making 30,000 a month or more, and they were back and forth. And so I became kind of comfortable making what I guess would be a lot of money, a few $100,000 a year, and also $10,000 a year. I was kind of comfortable each way. And it wasn't until I kind of got more involved in understanding goals and how you uncover goals properly that I realized, oh, there are some things that I need to work toward, like being done with money forever. So that means a whole different thing. That's not like I'm trying to be comfortable today or this month. What I'm trying to do is to get myself to a place where I'm comfortable forever in the money element.
Well, and there's a reason why the Facebook page that we're directing everyone to says Web Alley. That's the name of the company, and then it says "Welcome to Bro Business," because that was a phrase that came up from our third partner, Mike Hayden. Because some of the things that have frustrated me, and I've helped other agencies around the country about these things, is making sure that people have agreements in place to sign, making sure that people have business insurance, that they've actually formed companies for themselves to protect themselves. And these are things that we have relationships with other people out there to help you guys as well, so that you can have agreements that are written by attorneys, have business insurance to protect you should something go wrong. And you just never know when this is going to happen. I'm just really talking to a brand new client of mine 2 hours ago, and one of his buildings in Orange, California was lit on fire by arson this weekend, and it's going to be $1 million claim. And he said, on the 30 years he's owned commercial property in California, this is the third time he's ever had to file a claim. But when you have $1 million you need help with, it's good to have insurance. And there's a lot of things with our businesses we need insurance for. So we want to really make sure that everyone that joins us gets a lot of things out of it and has everything in place to run a business that's going to get them where they want to go. Help you guys understand how to create goals and then how to achieve those goals instead of just being a pie in the wind, hoping that you can finally get to it because, hey, I want to do 10,000 a month. Hey, I want to do 20,000 a month. That's awesome. How are you going to get there?
Well, so like one of the things that this kind of triggered for me to think about and I guess talk about now is being serious. And I think all too often there are a lot of people who are curious about making money online, and they do it and they make some money, but they're not serious. And it's not like, okay, well, you need to get some resolve and put your head down and actually get serious. Like F that. Like, I'll flip you off or kick you in the nuts, walk away. I don't want people telling me what to do. But what we do want to help people understand is like how to understand why you need to be serious about this. Like I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, but I can help you understand why this is something that you should be serious about. If you're in that place to be able to see it. And so that's one of the biggest things I want to be able to bring to the table. It's one of the reasons I took a whole year off with putting any program together, is that I really wanted to make sure that I could that I understood properly what in the world I could bring to the table that is I won't say lacking, but the other that people haven't yet seen, who have not yet gotten to that place. And one of the biggest elements is understanding that this can and probably should be something that you seriously apply yourself to, so that you can be ruthless about it. And if you're ruthless about it, you make sure that you can't lose. Business insurance, properly formed LLCs, contracts, those are things that you can put in place so you can't lose. And so all you can do is close a deal. And if you don't close a deal, you haven't lost. And you can go out and try to close again. You get a closed deal, you carry it through, you get the contract signed. Okay, well, now paperwork's in place. You can't lose then either, right? You can deliver value, but you also can't be taken out by a lawsuit. Or when somebody says, "Oh, right, yeah, great, send me the contract," you don't have one. That's not the time you want to be scrambling. I I know, because I've been in that place a lot. It's like, well, okay, great, I'll have it to you soon. I don't know how long it's going to take me to put it together, right? These are things that you need to know about beforehand. But the only reason you're going to want to know about them is if you properly understand why you need to have them, so that you can be very serious about what you're doing. And I'm not trying to push anybody. I get that. I know what being on a football field and 2-a-days or morning runs and spring ball, like with sports stuff, like I know what pushing is about. And there are times that are appropriate for that. That's not what this is about. So in that way, it's not like a boot camp, but this is about properly understanding why this is a massive opportunity right now that you can absolutely grab. But to really get these results, you're going to have to get yourself to a place where you understand and see things differently. And when you do, now it's easy again.
Yeah, I know we've done some of the different webinars. We've talked about, Fletch's phrase of what do you do after the customer says yes, and is that going to scare you? Or are you ready for it? And I mean, prime example. Yesterday, I had a referral in the morning. It was afternoon before I could call the referral. Set up an appointment this morning because I was extremely busy with a 30-minute time window that we could talk. Jumped on a Zoom call, had a talk with the gentleman. 10 or 15 minutes after we were done talking, he had a contract, and I was kind of shocked. I jumped into my contract software. Damn, the guy already signed the contract. We're supposed to have another meeting next Tuesday to talk everything out, and he already signed it and said, when you want the check. So it does help to have systems in place to do things quickly, because you never know. If someone wants to sign a contract or write a check, let them do that. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah. And so that in that way you can make things easy, but you gotta work to the place where things are easy. Yep. Because things are easy insofar as you understand them and you have the things in place that make them easy. So, that's something that, say, plagued it. It was what it was. I made a lot of money, and sometimes it didn't go as well as I thought it would have or could have or should have, but it was what it was. And, kind of coming around full circle, or I say full circle around again to looking at, okay, well, I've got a trade that I know well and that I understand well, and I can make good money with it, but I want to do more with this. I really want to turn this into something that helps a lot of other people, not just in the training, but in my own agency and in the people that I can actually pay, whether they're onshore or offshore. I want to be able for other people to benefit from what I know. And a great way to do that is with info products. And it's one of the reasons we put this together. I want to help people that I've come to know over the last 7 years online. There's so many people that I'm super fond of and have added so much value to my life. And that's one of the reasons we put this together. But what we've actually put together is about me being able to work with other business owners, especially small business owners who got rocked in 2020 a lot of times and have been largely taken advantage of, or they don't really have great options out there for digital marketing agencies to actually truly help them and get them great ROI and communicate with them openly. And so those are kind of the things that we put this together to really help convey and share. Glenn's been doing this even longer than I have. I said this, just working in advertising space and and digital marketing and sales and advertising and things like that. But kind of at the end of the day, it's like, there's a whole bunch of, quotes like that come to mind, and I'm going to try to not use any of them, but if you want to earn more money and spend less time, you're going to have to get other people to do some of the stuff for you. Well, they have these quotes, right? I think it was Henry Ford who said, I'd rather make 1% on 100 people's efforts than 100% on my own. And that really kind of boils down to, are you going to be a one-man shop and be doing all the button pushing and have to have your cell phone all the time and look at your emails, whether you're on vacation or on a weekend with your kids and family, or are you going to have systems in place that can take care of some of those things for you? And I have never in my life built a business where I did not have to do that until this year, right? With the exception of the stuff that I did with OMG, and that a lot of those systems were in place. I didn't build it myself, but I won't say it's not hard, but there are ways to do that, right? But you have to think about things differently. You have to think about yourself, not just as an SEO, but as somebody who builds these systems and puts yourself in a position where you can provide for more people, help more people than you would be able to do with just more of your own personal hours and effort.
Awesome.
All right, Glenn, let's wrap things up, man. We've gone 2 hours. I appreciate everyone's time tonight. Hopefully you got some great value. We've got a ton more training on the other side. Keep your emails open and keep an eye out for stuff from WebAlley, spelled WEBA11Y, just for your own information. That means accessibility, which is kind of one of the core things we do. Because next week, we're probably going to run a webinar on how to provide your services to your customers at 50% off. You get the full money, but the client only has to pay half. And we'll talk a little bit about that and kind of one of the ways that you can back into that. And one of the reasons why I love being able to build out bigger websites, not only because they rank better, but because you can charge more for them, which means that the client can actually take more of a tax credit immediately and pay for half of their website through a federal tax credit. That is pretty sweet. So thank you for helping me see that, Glenn. That was a big breakthrough for me in 2020.
I'm sure that's why that gentleman said yesterday, real quick, when I told him he was going to pay me $3,000 this week, but he got $1,500 back up when he filed his taxes next year. And that kind of made it a little bit easier for him.
A lot easier to say yes when it's 50% off. All right, guys, you take care. We'll talk to you again real soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.